You stand in Susa, 338 BC. The lamps gutter. The air smells of cedar oil. A steward pulls you from shadow to corridor. He speaks low. The king fears betrayal tonight. You are made to guard dynastic heirs, not to choose them. Many here study medieval history. None of that helps you now. The inner door waits. They taught you silence. They taught you to watch faces, not words. You keep your hands folded. The floor feels cool through thin sandals. The guard at the bronze door does not meet your eyes. That means danger. The women of the harem have fallen quiet. That means orders will come. One rule keeps you alive. Do not ask questions. A runner arrives. He bows. He says the king calls for wine. He says only trusted men may pour. He looks at you. Time is short. The corridor narrows before the audience hall. You think of your first day in this place. The physician. The knife. The fever. The vow that followed. You learn to live as a voice without lineage. You learn the names of queens and princes. You learned which breath means fear and which means rage. Tonight you must read one man only. Someone is always listening. The door opens. His Majesty sits on the high chair, not the throne. The cords of his robe hang loose. A captain of the guard stands by a column. A scribe readies a reed pen. The silver cup shivers on a tray. Your hands must not. The king lifts his chin. Pour, he says. He does not use your name. He never does. The room is warm. Your mouth is dry. You pour. The wine is dark. He drinks. He watches you over the rim. You lower your eyes. You count heartbeats. You hear the pen scratch. You hear the captain breathe. Later, this choice will break a dynasty. Power asks for silence. But silence keeps no one safe. Love unexpected turns in history? Hit like and subscribe. Drop your city in the comments. I'm curious where you're watching from. 3 months earlier, the court had come from Babylon. The roads were crowded. Tribute wagons creaked. The king's mother sent new attendants to the women's quarters. The army recruiters took boys from the villages. Merchants took notes. Priests burned incense. In the palace, doors closed. Now the camera pulls back. He was a palace eunuch in the late Achaemenid court. He had no sons. He had no clan to avenge him. His safety lay in service, in ritual, in proximity. He learned who held the keys to the women's rooms. He learned which satraps resented tax audits. He learned that a word at dawn could save a general, and a whisper at dusk could end him. In rooms without windows, he traded access for survival. He had a name in Persian. The Greeks later called him Bagoas. They would write of him with malice and envy. They would not describe the sound of his steps in that corridor. The Achaemenid court ran on ceremony. Officials marked protocol with wooden tallies. Petitioners covered their hands before the king. Messengers kissed the earth. Eunuchs controlled thresholds, the door to the king, the door to the harem, the door to the treasury. Control of a door meant control of time. Control of time meant control of favor. This rule never changed. But favors rot fast. He was not born to this post. Someone chose it for him. Someone paid a midwife. Someone paid a surgeon. The law did not name him, but custom made him a tool. He learned accounts. He learned Aramaic for business and Old Persian for command. He became the man nobles scorned in public and courted in private. One day he would choose who entered with letters. Another day he would carry a bowl to a king. The bowl could hold wine, or medicine, or judgment. He knows the cost if he refuses. Open questions gathered around him. Did the queen mother trust him? Did the satraps fear him? Which prince would rise if the king fell? He watched. He waited. He answered to no household, but the palace itself. That made him valuable. That made him expendable. Danger moved like a hand under a veil. Measured. Patient. Near. Tonight, a signature will decide whose son inherits. One order could end a reign. You stand with the tray. The king nods. The scribe looks up. The captain's grip tightens on his spear. The second cup waits near the ink. The king gestures toward it. He says, for our guest, the door behind you creaks. A figure enters. You do not breathe. The king does not smile. Pour for him, the king says. You lift the cup. The guest steps into the lamplight. You see his signet. You know his rank. You also know why the room is so quiet. You keep the cup steady. The guest steps closer. The lamplight shows a carved cylinder seal. You know the office. Royal physician. Your fingers tense on the stem. He smells of myrrh and crushed mint. The king lowers his eyes to the wine. The captain watches your hands. You wait for a word. None comes. Someone wants this man to drink. Trust ends at the threshold. Pour, the king says again. You do. The physician nods to you. He does not thank you. He looks only at the king. He says he has examined a prince. He says the boy is frail. He says the gods decide heirs. The room holds its breath. You do not. Back to the corridor. The door shuts. The steward takes the tray. Your job is to vanish. You walk the long passage past the treasury door. You hear accounts read behind shutters. You hear soft sandals from the women's quarters. You exhale at last. 3 months earlier, the court reached Susa at dawn. Bagoas measured the new faces. He saw the physician's new attendants. He noted their accents. Western satrapy. Good pay. Quick eyes. He asked no questions. He set a watcher near the storage jars. He moved a scribe from the harem corridor to the gate. He waited. Bagoas held the office of Chile Arch. The guards obeyed his signal. The servants read his lists. He could send a petitioner forward or leave him in dust. He could stop a courier at the arch and ask for a new seal. He could order a search of the wine stores after a rumor. He used each power rarely. People remembered better that way. A small move can shake a court. The Achaemenid palace ran on habit. Aramaic kept the ledgers. Persian sealed the orders. Greek envoys brought gifts. Median officials trained the pages. Eunuchs worked across them all. They saw schedules, not speeches. They held keys, not banners. They kept the royal women safe from men. They kept the king safe from noise. Their lives had a rule: be near, be still, be needed. Most were not born to it. Families sold boys to pay debts. War brought captives to the markets. Traders made their profit far from the palace. Cutters did their work. Temple men wrote receipts. The law did not protect the boys. Palace training did. It taught language, posture, silence, timing. Some served at tables. Some measured grain. A few learned the codes of the inner doors. Bagoas learned faster than most. He studied who greeted the queen mother. He watched which satraps bowed too low or not enough. He counted the officers who had served in Egypt. He added up loyalties like sums on a tablet. He was a man the old nobles mocked and used, then feared. He saw the physicians rise. The man was smooth and careful. He kept records of herbs. He kept his lips tight around bad news. He gained the king's trust after a winter fever. He had the right to speak in late hours. Bagoas saw that right and marked it. Access is a blade in daylight. Back to the chamber. The king listened as the physician spoke of the prince. The captain shifted his weight. The scribe paused. Bagoas stayed still near the column. He watched the physician's hands. He watched the king's eyes. A word here could move armies later. He thought of the line of kings. Cyrus, Darius, Xerxes, Artaxerxes. Names that held provinces together. Names that kept satraps from trying too much. A weak boy brought knives out of sleeves. A strong man kept them in. Suspicion had taken root weeks earlier. A royal taster fell ill after a banquet. A royal page slipped and broke a tooth on a cup. Trifles, the court said. Bagoas heard patterns. He ordered new seals on the wine. He moved a guard closer to the storage alcove. He told no one why. The physician had a key to more than jars. He had a key to the king's breath. Bagoas knew it. The king knew it. The captain knew it. The silence in the room came from that knowledge. Bagoas had once escorted a prince to the women's courtyard for a ceremony. The boy asked if he could run. Bagoas said no. Duty, not pleasure. The boy listened. The boy coughed. The boy trembled in winter. The physician finished his report. The king waved the cup away. He asked about a draft for sleep. The physician bowed. He said he had won. Bagoas watched the eyes of the captain. He saw a twitch. He saw the scribe dip his reed. He knew a path had opened. One promise can bury a secret. The king dismissed the court for the night. He asked Bagoas to stay. He asked the captain to stay. He asked the physician to bring the draft at moonrise. The door closed. The guards took position. The lamps burned low. Bagoas stepped closer to the king's chair. He waited for orders. The king spoke quietly. He asked for a test. He asked for certainty before he slept. "Make sure it is safe," the king said. Bagoas bowed. He turned to the door. He knew what the order meant. He would obey. Outside, the corridor seemed longer than before. The physician walked ahead with a lamp. Its light shook on the plaster. The captain followed behind. At the end of the passage, the storage alcove waited. The jar mouth was sealed with clay and string. The draft would come from there. The physician raised the lamp. He looked back at Bagoas. "Shall we begin?" he asked. Bagoas reached for the seal with steady hands. You break the clay seal. The string snaps. The scent rises: poppy, date syrup, wormwood. The physician watches your hands. The captain counts your movements. You tilt the jar. You pour a measure into a shallow cup. You hand it to the palace taster. He bows. He drinks. No one speaks until he breathes. The taster sits on a stool. His eyelids droop. He sways. Bagoas lifts a finger. A guard steadies the man. The physician says the draft should bring sleep in 10 breaths. Bagoas counts. The taster's head lowers to his chest. Bagoas waits. He places a palm under the man's nose. Warm air touches his skin. He waits longer. He notes the pulse of the neck. Steady. Bagoas gives the order. Wake him. The guard shakes the man. The taster opens his eyes and blinks. He can stand. He can walk. Bagoas nods once. He turns to the physician. "It is safe," he says. A page runs to the audience hall with the cup. The physician reseals the jar. Bagoas presses the clay smooth and marks it with the palace stamp. He keeps the jar in his hands. He will return it himself. The captain returns to his post by the door. 3 hours later, moonrise touches the high windows. Artaxerxes III sits again on the high chair. He accepts the cup. He drinks. He dismisses the scribe. He orders the lamps low. He says he will rest. He waves them all away. Bagoas remains at the threshold. He hears the king's breathing settle. He sees the captain take the first watch. He walks the corridor with the physician. He keeps the jar under his arm. He says nothing. He never leaves a door unguarded. Weeks had set this night in motion. Envoys had come from Egypt with arrears. The satrap of Lydia had delayed his levy. Greek mercenary officers asked for back pay. The prince in question had missed 2 mourning rites. A court like Susa recorded each lapse. It noted which priest frowned. It noted which noble avoided another. Eunuchs held the ledgers that counted silences. Bagoas knew how such pressure ended dynasties. He knew the names men whispered when the great king seemed weak. Cyrus, Darius. Those names returned when roads filled with rumors. Greek authors would later write that a eunuch and a physician ended a king. They would not list every order that made the end possible. He had the rank Greek visitors called chiliarch. In Persian usage, he kept the inner guard and the keys for royal passage. Aramaic scribes took his notes. He could move a man 10 steps closer to the throne or deny him daylight. He used that power to balance factions. He used it to survive. In the storeroom, the physician reached for the jar. Bagoas did not let go. He lifted it higher. He studied the physician's lamp. The flame shook when the man exhaled. Bagoas asked a simple question. Why was the boy frail? The physician answered without pause. Winter cough. Poor wet nurse. Weak heart. Words that fit the records. Words that could excuse a prince's failure to ride at dawn. Bagoas set the jar on the shelf. He pressed fresh clay across the string. He sealed it again. He marked the seal himself. A second jar waits behind the first. He saw it then. Another jar half hidden by a folded mat. Same shape. Same smear of date syrup on the lip. No palace stamp. The physician's eyes flicked toward it and back. The motion was small. Bagoas counted it. He moved the mat aside. He lifted the second jar. He weighed it. Lighter. He turned it. No official mark. The physician said it held a stronger sleep potion for difficult nights. He kept his tone even. He did not blink. Bagoas looked at the captain. The captain shook his head once. He had not seen this jar before. Who signed this? Bagoas asked. The physician named the quartermaster. Bagoas named the quartermaster's father and village. The physician paused a breath too long. Bagoas handed the jar to a guard. Hold it, he said. He called for the quartermaster. He sent a runner. He kept the physician where he could see him. If the signature is false, someone dies. The runner returned with the quartermaster half-dressed. The man saw the jar and paled. He said he had never sealed that one. He said his stamp lay locked in his coffer. He said he could fetch it. Bagoas nodded. Fetch it, he said. The physician's assistant shifted his feet. Bagoas noted the movement. He saw a small pouch at the man's belt. He stretched out a hand. Give it, he said. The assistant hesitated. The captain took the pouch and passed it to Bagoas. He opened it. Inside lay 2 clay seals. One matched the quartermaster's sign. The other copied a lower steward's mark. Bagoas looked at the physician. He did not speak. The king slept down the corridor. The night grew thinner. The guards changed places. Bagoas set the counterfeit seals on the table. He placed the second jar beside them. He ordered the assistant bound. He asked the physician again. Who told you to bring these? He said. The physician wet his lips. He looked at the door to the women's wing. He named a patron. You smell clay and mint. The bound assistant stares at the floor. The captain waits for your word. The physician licks his lips. He names his patron. He says your name. The guards shift their weight. The quartermaster returns with his coffer. He holds out his real stamp. It matches the palace roll. It does not match the counterfeit. The physician keeps talking. He says you asked for a stronger draft. He says you wanted a quick sleep for hard nights. He says you carry the seal to spare the king delays. You let him speak. Silence draws out fear. You take the real stamp. You hold it beside the false one. You look at the captain. You do not blink. You tell the quartermaster to keep his coffer open. You tell the captain to hold the room. You tell the guards to fetch the steward of the women's wing. The physician's eyes move again. The bound assistant breathes fast. You move the second jar away from the lamp. You set it far from heat. You mark a new seal in front of them all. You press it slow. You turn to the physician. Repeat your words, you say. He does. He adds a detail. He says the Queen Mother asked for quiet sleeps during winter. He says she relies on the physician. He tells the room that women's orders carry weight in the inner house. He ties your name to hers. The door opens. The steward of the women's wing arrives. She bows. You ask her one question. Who signed for sleep drops this month? She names 2 attendants. She does not name you. She does not name the physician. She does not name the quartermaster. The captain writes the names on a shard. You dismiss the steward. You dismiss the quartermaster. You keep the physician. You keep the assistant. You keep the captain. Now the scene widens. Bagoas had set up the room. He had tested the draft in public first. He had placed the counterfeit seals in the pouch days earlier. He needed leverage over the physician before the night turned. Greek writers later said a eunuch and a physician killed Artaxerxes III in 338 BC. They named Bagoas. They named a poison. They wrote that many sons died soon after. The palace record is spare. It notes a death, a mourning, a new king. Bagoas worked with facts on the ground. Artaxerxes III had ruled hard. He had taken Egypt by force. He had ordered purges after failure. He had reduced great houses. He had made satraps wary. He had many sons. Any struggle for the throne could split the realm. Bagoas needed control before the split began. He chose 2 tools. First, the physician with access at night. Second, the seals that tied orders to hands. If the physician wavered, the false seals would put him under threat. If the physician obeyed, Bagoas would protect him for a time. Either way, the path to the bedchamber stayed clear. Access is the only currency that holds. Bagoas also watched the women's wing. The Queen Mother had influence. She could study a succession or ruin it. She needed calm. She needed a safe air. She needed a man who could keep the guards in line until coronation. Bagoas could be that man. He did not share plans with her. He kept her door quiet. He kept her out of reach of the physician. The central secret sat in his ledger. He had chosen which son would live. He had weighed age, tutors, and temper. He wanted a young king who needed guidance. He wanted fewer brothers in the way. The realm would not survive a dozen claimants. He would cut that number down. He did not write the names yet. In the storeroom, Bagoas took the pouch of false seals. He placed it on the table. He picked up the second jar. He gave the captain a clear order. At Moonset, we move, he said. The captain asked one question. Whom do we protect? Bagoas answered. The boy, he said. He did not say the boy's name. He did not say the number of brothers who stood between the boy and the throne. Dawn will not be kind. He told the guards to keep the corridor empty. He told the physician to prepare a clean cup. He told the assistant to speak if he wanted to live. The assistant told him which chamber the king would use at second watch. He told them who held the night key. Bagoas listened. He nodded. He looked once toward the sleeping room. He set the new seal to dry. He weighed the second jar again in his hands. He knew the cost. He accepted it. The lamp sputtered. The captain adjusted his grip. The physician wiped his palms. The hall settled into its slow breath. The second watch bell sounded. Bagoas turned toward the king's door. Moonset came like a schedule, not a sign. Bagoas checked the corridor. The captain posted 2 men at each end. The physician carried a clean cup. The bound assistant walked ahead under guard. The second jar rode in Bagoas's hands. The seal on it was false. He had set it himself to trap the man who made it. Every footstep counts tonight. Back to the chamber. The king slept after the first draft. His breath was slow. The lamp burned low behind a screen. The room smelled of cedar oil and poppy. The captain stood inside the door, shoulders square. Bagoas kept his gaze on the physician. No one spoke until Bagoas gave the order. Prepare it. The physician rinsed the cup. He dried it on a linen square. He unsealed the second jar under Bagoas's eye. He did not shake. He poured a small measure. He added warm water as Bagoas had specified. He held out the cup. Bagoas did not take it. He pointed to the bound assistant. Taste. The guard lifted the cup to the assistant's mouth. A sip, no more. The man swallowed. He blinked. He stayed upright. Bagoas watched his pulse. Fast, but steady. Bagoas turned to the captain. Hold the door. He nodded to the physician. Bring it. One order cannot be recalled. They stepped to the bedside. The king's eyes were half closed. His lips were dry. Bagoas slid one hand under the king's shoulders. The physician touched the cup to the king's mouth. Sire, a draught for your cough, he said, barely above a whisper. The king swallowed once, twice. The cup emptied. Bagoas kept count of breaths. 10, 15. The king exhaled longer than before. The physician set the cup down. He kept his hands visible. The captain watched his face. Bagoas leaned close. He felt the warmth at the king's nose. He felt the pulse at the wrist. It slowed. It kept slowing. He did not move away. He listened for any change in rhythm. He heard none. He glanced at the captain and raised 2 fingers. Wait. Seconds turn into judgment. He remembered the ledger. He remembered the names of sons. He remembered the boy he had chosen. Young, manageable, protected by the queen mother's attendants. He had seen the tutor's notes. He had seen the boy's handwriting. Careful, obedient. He had weighed that against elder brothers who drank and boasted. He had made his choice. Back to the bed. The king's chest lifted again. The breath held longer. The physician's eyes shone with sweat. The bound assistant swayed. The captain did not blink. Another breath. Bagoas said softly. It came late. It came thin. It faded. Bagoas kept his hand at the wrist. He counted longer than needed. He kept the count because procedure mattered. He withdrew his hand. He looked at the captain. It is done, he said. A door closes, another waits. No one shouted. No one knelt. The captain crossed the room and checked the shutters. He checked the latch on the inner door. He returned to the bed and bowed his head. Bagoas took the empty cup. He wrapped it in linen. He placed it in a small chest. He sealed the chest with the palace stamp. He handed the chest to the captain. "To the treasury," he said. "Now." He turned to the physician. "You will remain," he said. The physician nodded. His lips trembled once. He kept his eyes down. Bagoas gave the next orders in a flat voice. The night guard would notify the Queen Mother at dawn. The women's wing would begin morning rites. The high steward would wake the court at first light. The captain would lock the storage alcove. The counterfeit seals would go into the coffer. The assistant would name every helper. The physician had acted under his eye. The seals could bind him if he changed his story. The path to the succession stayed clear. The court will smell incense by sunrise. Back to the corridor. Bagoas walked toward the women's wing. The guard there knew his signal. She opened the inner door a hand's breadth. Bagoas gave her one name. Not aloud. He leaned close and said it once. She nodded. She understood. She vanished to wake the attendants. Bagoas faced the captain in the passage. "We go now," he said. He meant the next act. He meant the boys who stood between the chosen heir and the throne. He meant the orders that would thin that line before sunrise. The captain's joy tightened. He did not ask which ones. He did not need the list. He would receive it one door at a time. Bagoas lifted his hand. The captain signaled the guards. They moved toward the prince's chambers. Dawn struck like a drum roll. The women's wing began the rites. The captain locked the storeroom. The physician sat under guard. Bagoas walked to the prince's corridor with a slate and a list. He spoke 10 names. He crossed out 8 by mid-morning. 2 weeks later, the court named a new king, Arses, the youngest son. He wore the diadem with a steady hand. He did not choose the guard lists. Bagoas chose them. He kept the keys. He kept the doors. He kept the realm quiet for now. The palace listens for a new name. Order held through winter. The satraps sent gifts. The Queen Mother kept the women's wing calm. The army paid its officers. The physicians learned to wait for summons. Bagoas watched each post. He moved a scribe here, a captain there. He knew which brother of the former king still had friends. He knew which noble rehearsed a speech he should not give. He cut rehearsals short. One letter could light a province. For months after coronation, the ledger changed. A northern satrap sent fewer horses. A Greek officer delayed a convoy. A priest paused during a prayer and looked at the door. Bagoas felt the drag. Arses was young. He leaned on tutors and women. The realm stayed wide but brittle. Bagoas wrote a new plan. He would end the rumors before spring. He would cut them at the root. He must clear the path again. 2 years after the old king's death, 336 BCE, Arses died with 2 of his sons. The court announced an illness. The guard opened the way for a new ruler, Darius, a distant kinsman known for steady service. Bagoas placed the diadem on him. The army saluted. The satraps bowed. The messengers ran. The roads filled again with tribute. The realm felt ready for war from the west. The throne remembers who lifted it. Darius moved fast. He replaced 2 treasurers. He met officers at night. He questioned the guard rosters. He looked at the keys on Bagoas's belt. He praised the eunuch in public. He listened to elders in private. He did not like a hand on his door. Bagoas saw the shift. He prepared as before. He set a cup aside. He set a seal. He kept the physician nearby. He preferred procedures that left few words behind. The plan did not stay quiet. Someone warned the king. The room filled at once. The cup came back across the threshold. Darius held it out. He asked for a toast. Bagoas understood. He lifted the cup. He drank. He bowed once. He did not speak again. This closed his account. It left a crown on a weary head. A key turns only one way. The larger story moved on. In 334 BCE, a Macedonian army crossed into Asia. Satraps called for men. Couriers ran until their sandals split. The new king faced battles on plains and at rivers. He held longer than the rumors would later allow. The old guard system still worked, but the cracks showed. The court had lost a man who understood doors, ledgers, and breaths. The empire could not replace that skill in time. Time jump. Years later, Greek writers set ink to tablets. They wrote that a eunuch killed a king. They wrote that he killed princes. They wrote that he placed 2 men on the throne, then died by his own poison. They liked the lesson. They missed the labor. They did not write the shift changes, the seal checks, the night counts. They did not write the daily rules that bound a life without errors. They left the smell of cedar oil out of the page. History keeps crowns. It forgets corridors. Bagoa's story shows the price of access. He rose because doors needed hands. He fell because a king did not want a hand on his latch. He did not have sons to argue for him. He had procedures. He had hours. He had rooms where he stood and waited for a nod. When the nod stopped, the man ended. The office stayed, and you return to the corridor. You stand at the door again. Your fingers feel clay under the seal. Your breath stays even. You hear a guard shift his weight. Somewhere inside, a pen scratches. Someone will call. You will step forward. A king is a room that others guard. If this pulled you into the corridor, subscribe for the next deep dive into power, ritual, and the people history almost erased.